Now, what people's general knowledge is also is that angels are thought to be human-like beings with wings. I guess more recently they're now seen as somewhat as monster-like. They're sometimes thought of as sentient things that can form their own decision. Sometimes they have no free will. They are usually physical beings, but in Islam I think they're called light in general. They
Hmm.
seem to have a gender and a sex, and maybe sometimes not. And I believe the Quran calls them the daughters of Allah. And their
Yeah, it's
jobs is generally like messengers. And they seem to love trumpets for some reason. Alright, you go ahead.
yeah. The trumpet thing is because, well, trumpeters back in the day were heralds of a king, and so angels would be the herald of God, who is the great king. But this is going to get really super complicated because we're going to have to get into Judaism and Christianity here. So let's look at how the actual Bible describes the appearance of angels.
Okay, now, do you want to start with your general thoughts, or do you want to actually go
All right,
start naming them first?
so in general, the idea of an order of angels is not actually from the biblical text. Is actually more from what's called Kabbalah, which is more of Jewish spiritualism that sometimes that gets kind of folded into Christianity thanks to demonology books, which took Kabbalah and added a more Christian tint to it in the early Middle Ages. This is super complicated stuff. I'm not going to dwell on it too much. In the actual Bible itself, we're only actually given the name of three kinds of angels. We are given the names cherubim, which simply means living things, seraphim, which means fiery ones, and then the word angels, which just means angels. Now, you could argue that we also get the name archangel from the Bible because there is a word in the Bible used to describe Michael that refers to him as the chief angel or the prince angel, which in English was translated to as archangel. But that's an interesting one because if we use strictly biblical sources, there aren't seven archangels. Michael's the only one.
What about Gabriel? Because I saw his name
He is
mixed
na-
with Michael and Gabriel a couple times.
Now this one is actually interesting. So Gabriel is mentioned in the Bible. He is not called an archangel, however. He is just referred to as an angel of the Lord or one of the holy angels. Now, we have referred to him as an archangel, but it's kind of complicated because he's not called an archangel in the Bible itself. It's only later sources, well, Kabbalah and biblical source later sources that call him an archangel.
Is there
Using strictly the Bible, the only archangel is Michael. He's the only one called a prince angel or a chief angel.
I definitely see when it comes to, I guess, angel mythology, or however it's phrased is, there's a lot of compositing.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of compositing goes on because there's a lot of sources that, while not the Bible themselves, have often influenced Christian beliefs and doctrine.
Yes,
Complicated.
yes. We'll get more to that, but let's go into the first angel. One first thing I got now is the cherubs.
Ah, the cherubim. Okay, so we first see the cherubim the first time we see the word cherubim is all the way back in Genesis, where they're just referred to as living things. They are referred to as the guardians of the Garden of Eden when Adam and Eve get kicked out. We they're also mentioned that in Exodus when God has Moses carve them, make multiple images of them in the Ark of the Covenant. But it's not until I believe I was it Isaiah or Jeremiah? Hold on, I'm trying to remember because it was one of them. No, it was Ezekiel. So in Ezekiel, we get a description of of what cherubim look like. And remember, cherubim simply means living things.
Hmm.
It literally just means living creatures. Because Ezekiel was having a hard time understanding these things existed. So to him, the fact that these things existed, they were alive, was blowing his mind. So, oh, go. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I interrupting?
Oh no, I just said the only general information I have on these guys is they seem to have a lot of roles. They're
Oh
somewhat
yeah,
they're somewhat close to God, and of course, animal bodies.
yeah, oh, yeah. So this is where we get the depiction of biblically accurate angels in the book of Jeremiah when he describes what the cherubim look like. And this is going to freak you out. I am warning you now. This is going to freak you out. Ezekiel, Ezekiel chapter 1, starting at verse 4. I looked and saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing lightning and surrounded by brilliant light. The center of the fire looked like glowing metal, and in the fire was what looked like four living creatures. These are the cherubim, four living creatures. That cherubim literally translates to living creatures. In appearance, so physically speaking, they were structured like humans, but each of them had four faces and four wings. Their legs were straight, which means they didn't have kneecaps or anything like that. They just had straight legs. Their feet were like those of a calf and gleamed like burnished bronze. Under their wings, on their four sides, they had human hands. All four of them have faces and wings, and the wings touched one another. Each and the wings of one touched the wings of another. Each one went straight ahead. They did not turn as they moved. Their faces looked like this. Each of the four had the face of a human being, and a lion, an ox, and an eagle. They each had two wings spreading out upwards, each wing touching touching that of the creature on either side, and two other wings covering its body. They went straight ahead, did not move. Uh, they shone like coals of fire or like torches. Fire moved back and forth among the creatures, and lightning flashed out of it. And as I looked at the living creatures, I saw a wheel on the ground beside each creature with its four faces. This was the appearance and structure of the wheels. They sparkled like topaz, and all four looked alike. Each appeared to be made like a wheel intersecting a wheel. As they moved, they blah blah blah. As they moved, they were going anywhere in the four directions of the creature's face. The wheels did not change direction as the creatures went. Their rims were high and awesome, and all four rims were covered in eyes. Big scary.
Yes, big creature man thing.
Yeah.
Chimera.
So again, to break down what we just said, humanoid appearance. They don't got no knees. No knees. Their legs just go completely straight lines. They got they got hooves made of bronze for feet, which they don't even walk though because they fly everywhere. And four wings, two to fly with, two to two above their head and two to cover their bodies with. Um, hands under each wing. It doesn't say arms, it just says hands, so that's creeping me out. Um, four faces: man, ox, eagle, lion, covered in fire and lightning, and their soul is in a wheel on the ground, and the wheel is intersecting alien geometries of wheels intersecting wheels and spinning all the time, also on fire and covered in eyes. And people say Lovecraft was scary. I think I might actually would rather stare Yog Sothoth in the face and look at a biblical angel.
And there's some traits I notice with these things. Is like
Yeah,
one, there seems to be a strong like elemental vibe with these guys, like
yeah,
fire, lightning. That
yeah.
seems to be a part of the thing.
Mhm. That is a big thing with any of the angels. For example, which we'll get to in a second, the seraphim literally mean fiery ones, which means expect even more fire than the cherubim, which will be fun.
Another thing I noticed is, assuming angels have been around since the beginning of existence, or maybe before.
Yes, in fact, it's specifically stated that when God created heaven and earth, the angels already existed. Like they were already just sitting there in the time before time, and the reality before reality with God.
Okay, So just
So I believe.
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, no, no. You go
So
ahead.
basically, when God created animals, He created the animals that we listed essentially from this angel. Can we conclude that? You think?
That is my personal interpretation. Like that's what I always believe. Though it could also be argued that this is just the closest Ezekiel's fragile human mind can get to understanding what angels look like, what the seraphim, what the cherubim look like. It's
Yeah,
like
that
his brain's trying to impose order onto unstructured, pure creation, and failing.
I was just about to bring up that point. Like, he might be just seeing these creatures because I believe generally when a person sees an angel, they almost look rather human. But he
Yeah,
just saw like them straight up, their real form, and that's the best his brain could do to handle.
yeah, this happens occasionally with prophets, and this is why prophets are so much different from people who the angels visit. Because if you notice, a lot of times in the Bible, when angels visit normal people, they'll just be normal human beings with like maybe a little bit of a glow around them. But then when you get to the prophets, and the prophets always see things that men were not meant to see, and they just go, I don't want to be a prophet anymore.
Yes.
This happens a lot in the Bible, like quite a few times. You think I'm making this up or I'm cracking jokes, but not really.
Blessing and a probably a bigger, tremendous burden that they originally could imagine.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Like just read the book of Revelation of Saint John. The man spends like half the book just freaking out. So even as he's writing it, so I'm like, yeah, he must have been having a time. So that is what cherubim look like in the Bible. So of course, the thing is, as I mentioned before, um, cherubim and cherubs are, are often put in a rank in the in the Mishneh Torah, the Berit Makana, and the Hierarchia. Now these are not traditional biblical sources. The Mishneh Torah is basically a rabbinic Jew's breakdown of it's hard to explain, but it's basically a breakdown and a commentary on the original Torah, and it adds to stuff like that. Yeah, yeah, but
That
it's one of
sounds
the first. Yeah, it's one of the first sources we have for like the idea of ranks in angels. Because again, as I mentioned earlier, in the Bible there really isn't any kind of ranking. It's just these are cherubim, these are seraphim, and that's Michael, the prince angel, the chief angel. Do not fight him. Yeah, so in a lot of these lists where you'll find listings of angels, the seraphim are supposed to be treated as aspects of God's glory. Their flame, a small candle to the fire that is God's glory. This burning existence that could shear you out of reality is not a flickering candlelight compared to God's glorious majesty. But they are fiery hot. Now, we don't get a lot of descriptions of them in the Bible. They are mostly just described as the fiery ones. A couple of times, twice in the book of Numbers and in the book of Isaiah, they are mentioned as fiery, flaming serpents. So they might look more like, if you say, because of cult on fire, than fiery winged guys. Just from the few descriptions we have in the actual Bible itself, they might not look the way we imagine, but they might be more obviously most people draw seraphim as like human shaped flames or humanoid or winged humanoids on fire or things like that. According to the Bible, like the few things we understand of them from the Bible, they might be more along the giant flaming flaming winged serpents, which, you know, terrifying. Yeah, the book of Isaiah describes them that way. Now, obviously, not going to get a lot of people might be a little uncomfortable looking at that while praying. So the early church kind of just drifted towards a more human look.
But I will say, with the serpent-like description is, it's like the first. That would be like the first positive
Description of
start.
serpent. Yeah, usually serpents are, you know, Lucifer, literally Lucifer. Like not even a metaphor. It's not. I'm not saying all snakes are Satan. I'm saying the two times we see a snake, the only other two times we see a snake here, it's literally the devil in disguise, which makes sense because if Lucifer was an angel, and if we know Satan are also angels, and Lucifer's supposed to be like one of the most powerful, it actually kind of makes sense for him to be able to shape shift into the form of lesser angels. This is the this is the deep lore you people come for.
Archangels. Now, say we mentioned earlier that technically Michael is the only one.
There's seven.
You have Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, Raphael, and
Mm-hmm.
I think somebody's Metatron.
Oh, Metatron's tricky. People don't. People seem to count in the aspects of Christianity and Judaism where Metatron exists. He's kind of above the archangels. He's the voice of God. The seven archangels traditionally. So the seven archangels in the book of Enoch, which is not part of the official Bible, but it's one of those books that aren't in the Bible, are Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, Zariel, Raguel, and Remiel. And then in Kabbalah, which is, I've mentioned this before, which is Jewish mysticism, there's actually 12. There's Metatron, Raziel, Hasiel, shout out to my supernatural fans, Zadkiel, Camiel, Michael, of course, Uriel, Haniel, Raphael, Jophiel, Gabriel, and Sandalphon? Huh, Sandalphon. It's just such a weird name because everyone else has the L suffix, which means of God. You just get Metatron Sandalphon, which is like, huh.
So we could say Lucifer being an archangel is purely just only in like fiction.
So not quite fiction, but it's kind of an extrapolation. See, in the Bible, and of course the original text, Lucifer was supposed to be the greatest of angels, the morning star. That's what his name means. The Lucifer literally means the morning star. It literally means light. It literally means shining one or light bearer. So he was supposed to be like the greatest angel. So people who believe that the archangels are the top tier angels would be like, okay, so if he was the greatest angel before he fell, he has to be an archangel. Makes sense. As a though again, this is assuming that archangel is a rank and not just Michael's title. Yeah, a job description or Michael's title. Because as I mentioned before, when he is mentioned in the Old Testament and again in the New Testament, they refer to him as Michael the Archangel, as in the definitive article, like the Archangel, not one of a set, but the. However, that does not. However, as I mentioned before, other sources, Kabbalah, uh, ex, apocrypha books mention other archangels. So they're like, okay, so it goes from the archangel to an archangel. Yeah, and then we get the other. Then once we'll get to the other ones really quickly. But but basically we've covered all the ones that are actually mentioned in the official Bible. Past this, we're going to be getting more into Jewish and Christian and Islamic apocrypha.